French gastronome Jean and Delaine Bouillard-Savarin famously wrote, "Tell me what you eat, and I'll tell you what you are." Well, somewhere along the line, the quote has been twisted into "you are what you eat," which really isn't the same thing at all. Still, wouldn't it be interesting if we did become what we ate the most? Just as I feared. Over the last few decades, our culture, fixated on fast, cheap, low-fat, convenient meat, has come to rely more and more on Gallus domesticus. It's like the movie Soylent Green, only with, chickens instead of, And we need to find an alternative, antidote, if you will, before it's too late. Let us consider the most popular cut of this critter, the breast. It contains a high percentage of fast twitch musculature, which is primarily anaerobic, therefore it lacks hemoglobin, and therefore it is light in color. Since these muscles don't work very often, if ever, there isn't much connective tissue, hence it is tender. And since poultry scientists, geneticists, and feed engineers have whittled away at its fat content until it's on par with, an underfed Russian supermodel, it's about as lean gets. Now, how do we replace this? Well, let's consider the beef critter. It's mighty tasty, but with an average feed conversion ratio of 5.5 to 1, an average fat content of about 20%, and an average cook time of, over 2 hours for, say, a 4 to 5 pound roast. This is not exactly a replacement for chicken, now is it? The profile just doesn't match. But then let us consider the pig. Although many of the cuts found herein require either long cooking times or mechanical tenderization, there's one particular muscle in here, or rather two per pig, that rivals the chicken breast for convenience, flavor, and fat content. It is the tenderloin. And what I like about it best is that it doesn't taste a bit like chicken, which certainly qualifies it as... Everybody, say hi to Wilbur. Now, the particular pieces that we hope to harvest from Wilbur are buried deep within his nearly entirely edible chassis. But that doesn't mean that they're hard to get to. In fact, when a commercial hog is dispatched, it is generally split right down the middle. Of course, there's a lot more kind of stuff in there at the time, but this is pretty good. You can see we've got the ribs and we've got the spine, and you'll notice lodged right along the inside of the rib cage next to the spine are these two beautiful little tubes of meat, one on either side. These are the tenderloins, and their convenient placement is, as far as I'm concerned, proof positive that we were meant to eat them. Now, as one moves into the meat market arena, you're going to quickly note that a great many tenderloins come from the processor in these heavy bags. They're called cryo bags. There's always 2 whole tenderloins in there, along with a good amount of liquid. They are hermetically sealed, and so they have a very long shelf life. I've kept one of these viable in the chill chest for well over 2 whole weeks. But beware. Many such sacks, right there, contain enhanced pork. You may find your tenderloin floating in a speckled solution, which could contain, potassium lactate, sodium diacetate, sodium phosphates. Yum. So why is so much tenderloin packed in just such a pickle?
The tenderloin cooks very quickly and can dry out even quicker. So liquid enhancers injected into the meat can help make up for that.
So in other words, we breed most of the juicy flavor goodness out of the pig and then re-inject it with a salty solution.
Some folks are just happy it's not fat.
Well, I may not care for the idea of pork enhancement Washington, D.C. style, but on the plate I think it's a pretty good idea. But every good cook should know that enhancement starts in the home. So I'm just going to take one of these bad boys with me. Oh, how do you like yours?
Best cut for a fast weeknight grill session.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Before we get into home enhancement, we need to do a wee little bit of butchery. Tenderloin contains no bones, no gristle, and no real fat to mention, but there is a small little strip of non-digestible reticulin called silver skin here kind of sheathing the muscle, and that has got to go. So insert the end of a narrow boning knife or a paring knife away from you and kind of slide it enough to get your finger in, and then pull and kind of slide. Try not to saw back and forth too much. Then turn, hold the skin, and go the other way. Notice I'm kind of wiggling that silver skin. Now, once you've got all of this off, then you can contemplate the enhancement options. When it comes to meat flavor enhancement, there are 3 standard scenarios to consider. Dry rubs are supercharged surface seasonings, either dredged, sprinkled, or rubbed onto the surface of the meat mere moments before the heat is introduced. This creates a nice, tasty crust. Now, brines are simple or complex salt solutions capable of initiating changes in the structure of the meat via osmotic action. We often employ brines to prevent bigger hunks of critter from drying out during long periods in the oven. And then we have marinades. Now, not everyone agrees on the technical differences between a brine and a marinade. But in my book, the delineation is simple, because the defining characteristic of a marinade is acidity. Okay, acids turn taste buds and saliva glands up to 11, and that can be a very good thing. All right, if you have a pork tenderloin destined for the grill, as far as I'm concerned, this is the only marinade you need. I build it in an 8-ounce jar because we don't need a lot. It's potent stuff. Begins with 1/2 cup of lime juice for acid. And yes, it's got to be fresh squeezed. Now, before squeezing said limes, you're going to need 4 to get your 1/2 cup. Finally, grate the zest of just one of them and toss that into the mix. Now, to balance some of that sour, we'll need some sweetness in the form of a 1/4 cup of honey. Lighter varieties are better than darker varieties. 1½ teaspoons of kosher salt will lend a briny bite and also give our marinade a chemical, advantage that we'll get into later. Some additional flavor will come from 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, which I prefer to the raw ingredient because it disperses more easily in the marinade. Put on the lid and just give that a good shake to combine. There. Now, I am going to put 1/2 of this into a zip top bag, gallon size, along with our trimmed pork tenderloin. The rest of it we will reserve for later use. Now, last but by no means least, a little heat. I have here 1 chipotle chili. This was canned in adobo sauce, and I simply finely diced it. Now, that goes in. We give it a nice little massage around the meat and seal, removing as much air as possible. Now, in as little as 6 hours, we will have positive effect, but 24, well, that'll give us a whole new piece of meat. What does a marinade actually do? Well, let me tell you what it doesn't do. It doesn't tenderize. Even if marinades could penetrate big hunks of meat enough to reach tough inner fibers, and they can't, it would take days or maybe weeks for the work to be done. And yet, even a relatively short soak in our marinade is going to make a difference. Here's why. Now, let's say for a minute this wine bottle is our meat. Now, it can float in this big bucket of flavor all day without taking in very much at all. But the salt in our marinade affects the proteins at the surface, a process called solubilization, so that the space between the meat fibers kind of opens up, thus allowing for better absorption, or what the meat industry calls pickup. Now, once it's in, the acid weakens the proteins so they can better bind with the liquid, thus increasing the meat's WHC, or water holding capacity. Then, in the coup de grace, the salt swells outer fibers, eventually sealing them so the moisture is, in essence, locked inside. The result, a flavor-loaded piece of meat that's less likely to dry during cooking. Due to its size, shape, and general lack of connective tissue, pork tenderloin cooks curiously quickly. It also has the annoying habit of drying out very, very quickly. To me, that automatically points to cooking very, very quickly over the highest heat that we can possibly muster. And that means we will be turning to the carbonaceous remains of hardwood, partially combusted in a low oxygen environment, i.e., charcoal. Natural chunk charcoal. No preservatives, no buffers, no funny business. You're going to need 4.5 pounds of it, and yeah, I really do weigh it because it's difficult to measure volumetrically. But if you want to eyeball it, just go with one large chimney, such as this. As for the grill itself, well, anything with a grate and a little do, but I'm partial to old Fireball here. Been with me over a decade. It's a beautiful relationship. Anyway, as far as ignition goes, you may eschew any chemical agents and simply rely on a couple of sheets of today's bad news. To make it burn longer, I like to drizzle on about a teaspoon of vegetable oil, maybe 2. Just wad that up good and put under the chimney. There, fire it up, and it should be ready to go in about 15 minutes. Now, as for other gear, we are definitely going to want to have one of these around, always a good idea. Some heat-proof gloves, which I get at my local fireman supply store, and some long tongs for easy manipulation of the meat. Speaking of. All right, time to extract our tenderloin, which you'll notice has absorbed some of the 3 ounces of liquid that we placed it in. And go ahead and get your reserved marinade while you're at it. That is a good hot fire. You can tell by the gray that's right around the edges of the charcoal. So we will carefully dump and want to spread that around a little bit just to get nice even coverage. You don't want any piles or you have uneven heat. There. Now, the grill grate we apply thusly. There we go. At this point, a lot of folks would be lubing up the meat to keep it from sticking. I don't like that. If you've spent any time around a grillman in a restaurant, you've probably seen one of these. It's just a side towel with a little twine around it. Keep it in a container with a little bit of oil so that you can swab the grill thusly. Just give it a quick rub down. That is all the lubrication that is needed. But you want to make sure there isn't so much oil here that this all bursts into flames. That would be not necessarily a good thing. There. Now we're ready for the meat. No lubrication on the meat. That's important. And right down on the hottest part of the fire. Reapply the cover. And we time 1.5 minutes. Okay, 1.5 minutes is up, so give your tenderloin a quarter turn. There, now re-lid, and we will time another 1.5 minutes. Then we're gonna roll another 90 degrees. We're gonna keep that going until we have accumulated 12 minutes of cooking time. But actually what's more important is that in the end, we have got to hit an internal temperature of 140 degrees. Oh, look, it's my attorneys, Itchy and Twitchy. Hey, I see you guys dressed for grilling today. Nice, you look, stupid. What? Oh, you have got to be kidding me. There has not been a case of trichinosis in commercial pork in this country since, well, yeah, look, wild cougar meat. Come on, guys. Besides, trichinosis larvae die out at 137 degrees. Look, no, I want you to look at that. My neighbor, McGregor, just put that fence in, and I'm pretty sure he's about 1 inch over the line. Go check it out. Go on. Now, in preparation for landing, we are going to actually rest the meat in a little kind of canoe made out of aluminum foil. So just take a piece like this, fold it over, and seal the ends so that it looks kind of like a little dugout, if you would. You want to make sure that the ends are relatively watertight. There, nothing to do but turn and time. That looks good. Nice char, but not too Pompeii-like. And we actually have a temperature of 141 degrees. We only missed it by a degree, so that is good. Now, we need to get this into our little dugout. You remember that? That goes in, and we'll pour on the reserved marinade right on top. There. Now, just crimp this down to make a nice, tight seal. We're going to let this sit for at least 10 minutes. Before serving. Now, some science types may still debate the merits of a pre-cook marinade period. But the benefits of a post-cook soak are less debatable. That's because of something called capillary action. You see, heat damages the meat structure during cooking, creating tiny fissures along the meat fibers. As the meat cools and the interior pressure diminishes, many of these fissures will automatically take in surrounding liquid, such as your marinade. Thus, we can achieve deeper flavor penetration after cooking than before. Sliced on the bias and sprinkled with some cilantro, you've got yourself a fast and flavorful main course. But, well, I guess eating all this at once would be bad.
Actually, according to the USDA, a 3-ounce portion of pork tenderloin only contains 2.98 grams of fat compared to an equal portion of skinless chicken breast, which contains 3.03 grams of fat. Plus, pork is packed with B vitamins and plenty of iron.
And it doesn't taste one bit like chicken.
No, it doesn't. Still, you shouldn't eat all of this at once.
Not to worry. I know an even better pork tenderloin trick that has the added benefit of a prestigious pedigree. On Sunday, June 18, 1815, French forces under the command of one Napoleon Bonaparte got their clocks cleaned in a muddy little hole called Waterloo by a combined Prussian and English force. Now, the English were commanded by an Irishman named Arthur Wellesley, the first Duke of Wellington. Now, as was the habit back in those days, a dish was devised and named for the victor. In this case, a raw tenderloin of beef wrapped in a pastry crust and cooked. Beef Wellington. Now, the dish was in and out of fashion all the way until the 1960s, by which time it had accumulated things like truffles, foie gras, and cooked mushrooms and whatnot. And then, obscurity for some 30-something years. Well, I say it's time for a triumphant return, only with pork tenderloin.
If you're a faithful fan of this show, you no doubt have frozen puff pastry in your freezer right now. Remove one sheet, place on a clean kitchen towel, cover, and thaw for 30 to 45 minutes.
Hot box to 400, rack upper third. Now, my standard MO for a pork roast not going to the grill is to add a spice, a fruit, and an herb. So I'm thinking mustard, whole grain, apples, dried, and some fresh thyme. Now, these are all assertive flavors, so we're going to back up the pork itself with some cured pork, which can also serve as a wrapper. Say 4.5 ounces of prosciutto, the famed salted air-cured but unsmoked ham from Italy. Now, depending on the cut, it's going to take anywhere from 5 to 10 very, very thin pieces. It's expensive stuff, but a little goes a long way. Oh, we're also going to need 1 egg beaten with a tablespoon of water, and of course, 1 pork tenderloin. Before going any further, take 1 ounce of the apples for a spin around your favorite food processor until they look something like this. Okay, I have here 1 tenderloin already liberated of its silver skin. I'm going to split it down the middle with a sharp boning knife. And in order to kind of even up the size at both ends for even cooking, I'm going to flip this end over here. There. Now just lay out your prosciutto pieces, as many as it takes, just overlapping so that they go from one side to the other. Roll over them with a rolling pin. That'll kind of knit the fat together. Now this is going to get some seasoning. 1 teaspoon of the fresh thyme goes on, followed by a 1/4 teaspoon of both kosher salt and black pepper. Now the meat goes back on. There. The apples are going to go right down the middle. Then we're going to roll this up. Now the important thing is that the end of the prosciutto tucks under, so kind of roll it over and then pull the parchment away. That'll make sure that that prosciutto stays put. And then just roll, kind of pull, roll, and pull. There. That looks great. Now just set this aside. Now, little flour goes on the board to prevent sticking, and we bring forth the pastry. Now we're basically looking for about a 12 by 14 piece. So just start rolling, and don't forget to change directions or you'll end up with something that looks like an amoeba, and that's never good eats. Now, the mustard, and I've just got 2 tablespoons here, whole grain. Get it as thin as you possibly can, otherwise it'll pool up. There. Position your pork roll right over that and roll. We've got just a couple of inches left. You're going to want to apply the egg wash, and that's going to kind of glue things together. There, now roll, pinch the ends. Okay, now move that to a half sheet pan that has some parchment paper on it, and brush the top for even browning. To the oven. Cook until the internal temperature reaches 140 degrees and the exterior is golden brown and delicious. It's going to take 25 to 30 minutes. So go ahead and set your timer for 25. And remember, if your oven has a history of uneven cooking, you're going to want to rotate the pan halfway through the process. Now Now that is what I call pig in a blanket. Now you are going to be sorely tempted to carve right into that straight from the oven. Do not move it to a cooling rack and let it have 10 minutes to just sit and gather itself. That'll allow the outside crust to solidify. When you do cut, serrated knife is the only tool for the job. Now this is the really cool part. Use nice long strokes and you will be rewarded. That is a beautiful cut of meat. I like to serve it nice and thick like this. Now, what I love about this dish, besides the fact that it's absolutely delicious, is that it looks like it took hours to prepare, even though it didn't. I love that. Well, I hope we've inspired you to put down that chicken and seek out the most miraculous cylinder of meaty goodness around, the pork tenderloin. Why, I bet if we just spread the word in no time, we'll see some real positive change. See you next time on Good Eats. Buzz, buzz.